Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you for choosing to join in this week's episode. Now, this week's episode is one of those techniques that I use day in, day out in so many different ways. And this particular way is something that I've been doing more and more and more of recently. And I'm sure you are facing these kind of challenges too. Now, I won't talk about it too long because you're about to watch me do it. But before I head on, I've got one little thing I would love to tell you all about. One of my Patreons, Fiona Bonner, has got a wonderful little boutique salon space on a first floor in Soho, Greek Street, and she has a chair that is up for rent, use, whatever. However, I'm not sure exactly how the terms and conditions apply. I think it's you are your own business and you work within the premises, but you'll have to deal with all that with Fiona. If you're interested, there's some pictures on the screen. It looks like a lovely little spot. If I was in London, it looks like just the kind of place I'd like to work. Linked in the description down below is Fiona's email address, where you can contact her with all the inquiries you like. I'm sure she would absolutely love to hear from you. But also on that note, don't forget, down in the description is the link to my Patreon. On my Patreon, we do 2 lives a month for $10, and you can join in 1 live a month for the $4 price. The $4 one tends to be kind of focusing on theoretical side of hairdressing and more Q&A, and then the other side of it is more tutorial led lives that we do once a month. So $10 for both, or $4 just for theoretical stuff. If you're interested, then head down to the description or drop me a message and I'll tell you more about it. So until next week, look after yourself, be safe, be sane, and I'll see you in the next one. This is the starting point of what we had to deal with here, and I'm sure you've seen a hell of a lot of these recently. A very, very grown out blonde effect, and here it was really about kind of not creating too much maintenance. And a lot of people, I'm sure you're in the same position, are coming in with lots of roots, lots of white hair, and not wanting to go back to the high maintenance looks that they had before. So in this particular instance, it was really, really important for me personally to do something that was going to help aid that. Now, in that top area, I've gone in with a tint on a level 6, and I've simply stretched it down all the way until it meets the blonde. Now, this is super simple, this part. So it's a level 6 tint, it's with an ash blue tone, and it's with 10 volume. I only want 1 level of lift, but I want the tonal value of the ash blue in there to really control that. Now, I'm then going to go in with a secondary colour of a blonde shade that's going to kind of cool everything down. So this is a 9N shade, natural neutral tone, again 10 volume, just to deposit colour into the blonde hair. And then the secondary colour that I'm using is a 6N with a little bit of 6GB. Now, the reason that I'm using 6N and 6GB and not the same colour as the root colour is because if we took that 6 blue shade through those ends, we would simply turn them very ashy, very sludgy. We'd have quite a green effect on the hair. Got an eyelash in my eye. We'd have quite a green effect on the hair, and that wouldn't necessarily be very nice. So we're trying to avoid that, obviously, but also we want to create something multi-tonal and interesting and break up that hard demarcation from that regrowth over the last, I don't know, 8, 9 months, 10 months of not having the hair coloured. And so the idea of this is that going forward, the white hairs will be less prominent, because we'll be able to kind of drop it down a shade, which will reduce the contrast from the natural white hair present, but equally given the option of growing out those blonde bits. Obviously we might want to put them back at some stage, but it's not looking likely right now, and that's absolutely fine too. So as we work through this technique, really simple. I'm just going to recap it. I've talked about similar techniques before in the past. Remember to stretch that colour out, glossy at the roots, satin in the mids, matte as we come to the end. You can see it very clearly on the screen right now. So it's got that real nice blend and transition, and that helps massively. You could just leave this if the blonde colour was on the end, was nice. You could just transition into it and not have to do any other more work to it. But as we want to create multi-tonality and different textures within the hair, then it's really important that we kind of then blend it into something else. So again, I'm going to be using that blonde formulation and the brown formulation, and in those weaves that I'm taking, I'm digging all the way through the section, approximately 1 centimetre. Because this is not a massively high contrast end result, the 9's going to be on probably longer than the manufacturer recommends, and therefore it's going to drop down a bit deeper. It's going to kind of look like a 9.5 result, but I do want to break it up quite a lot. I want to really kind of add dimension and depth, so the blonde hair, when you see it at the end, you'll be able to see that it kind of sits on something darker, and that really makes the blonde pop off the head, but it's still quite subtle and soft. It's not hitting you in the face like a ton of bricks. So I really like these techniques. They're super simple, they're super easy to do, and they look massively effective for the client. So it is a winner all day long for me, kind of creating that reverse balayage effect. Either you can utilize this for that kind of stretched ombre type look, using it today specifically for the sort of ombre multi-tonal tint balayage effects, everything in one, because it's come down quite low, that's not very high up in the hair. But before we see the finished result, we're going to have a little recap of what we started with, so we can see we've got that really strong heavy demarcation in the hair, and now we've got something that's got multi-tonal depth, contour. The blonde is much more subdued. It's like it's roughly a 9.5. It was on obviously a bit longer than manufacturer recommends, especially in the back, just because of the sort of time that it takes to apply this technique. Although the technique only takes about half an hour to apply, by the time you get around to the front, it's really definitely processed. So it will have dropped down a little bit deeper in the back, but it's not dropped down too much. And that root color being that 1 shade lighter, it just looks a whole lot more succinct with the whole thing, and it's not too warm. It's really controlled, and the white hairs were still translucently present, but they weren't too overt and obvious. And it's a really fantastic solution for those clients that kind of want to start embracing their white hairs. They're not quite ready to go kind of whole hog, you know, leaving it grow natural. They want something in between. Doing those lifting, you won't get the same amount of deposit onto the white hairs as you would if you were depositing on level. So let's say 5 onto 5 or 7 onto 7, or if you're lifting the hair as well, you're not going to get the same amount of deposit, and therefore you're going to get a translucent white hair coverage, still with added tone, but the translucency will be present. But I'm utilizing the translucency to my advantage, so that's really something to bear in mind. So I hope you found this episode interesting, useful. It's probably maybe giving you some extra ideas with the clients that come in with super long regrowths at the moment. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and chat to me down in the comments section. It's all massively helpful to grow the channel and help support the Life of Hair community. So I really appreciate each and every one of you who do that for me. And until next time, I'll see you again in another episode of the Life of Hair.